Peace. It's Bronzebird here with another video. Before I begin, like and subscribe. Thank you. So I didn't get a chance to do this video when the situation was brought up a couple of weeks ago, but I figured that I wanted to give my own perspective in what is it that I thought about the unfortunate event of such a young sister by the name of Lauren Smith, who passed away December 12th from a Bumble date that went wrong. And I also wanted to give into the idea, I don't believe a lot of brothers discussed this or even touched on this, especially the whole entire thing that happened with another woman that went on a dating website. I believe it was Bumble or something else, but met up virtually to the physical realm. A woman by the name of Brenda Rawls, who was 53 years old, and the other woman was 23. So there could be a significance on that as well if we think about it in numerology sense. But then again, probably not. It was 30 years apart. So the thing about it that I want to discuss today is that, number one, especially hearing in the virtual world, brothers that give their whole entire angle on this being profound case because it featured a so-called black woman who went on a virtual date with a so-called white man. And that so-called white man, which we cannot determine at this time, whether he was intentionally trying to harm this young woman, used drugs in that date, or drugs was found on her in her system by the time she had passed away. And so a lot of brothers went on a high horse and sat up there and say, this is the reason you shouldn't be dating these so-called white men. These white men don't care about you. And, the woman was a divester, and it's all this stupid, dumb shit that Negroes wanted to pull out of their ass to signify the fact of the matter, the so-called black woman needs the so-called black man and all this other stuff. That's not the point of the case, fellas. And today I'm going to be reviewing a couple of things and articles I strung up together in order to understand my whole entire analysis on the situation at hand. My thing about it is this: we live in an era where virtual dating happens. There's been some exchanges where people have met up with each other. Things went great. Things didn't go great. I mean, especially there was a TV show made off of this called Other Than Catfish, where there has been events where couples have met up and things have went right, or someone had pulled a nasty prank on someone. But the good thing about that show is at least there was surveillance. So of course, if there was someone who wanted to pull violence on there, that could have been broken up quickly. Now, my stance on virtual dating or virtual meetups, I stand in between. I don't have a problem with people wanting to meet up. We're humans. We're made to socialize with each other, whether that be mating or non-mating or business or this, that, and the third. It's natural. We do that as humans. But of course, it takes it to a different angle now because of the fact of the matter, all we need to do is see each other between two screens, your computer and my computer, or my cellular device and your cellular device. And that's how we communicate with each other and hopefully meet up with each other in the physical realm of the world. Now, with that being said, I advise people to be careful. That's what I really do. You don't know. And I mean, if you don't feel safe, especially as a woman, always use your phone to the best of your ability. Directly always have text messages and all these different things that you're sending out. You know what I'm saying? So that at least somebody's in reach in case something starts to become shaky, and you automatically can call on that phone, because we don't know what's going to happen with that stranger you're dealing with. But I'm going to get into the story, and I'm going to give my analysis about this because this involves also the Bridgeport Police Department as a way of saying they have dealt with a lot of racial misconduct in that whole vicinity and that whole entire neighborhood itself in Connecticut. So let's watch this. Pete.
Now, a new reaction tonight after accusations that Bridgeport police mishandled investigations into the mysterious deaths of two black women. The mayor announcing disciplinary action against detectives. Investigative reporter Sarah Wallace has the story.
I feel that they've mistreated us. They don't have any regard for us.
Today, the family of 53-year-old Brenda Rawls echoing what we've heard before from the family of 23-year-old Lauren Smith Fields.
There was no care for the family about how we felt, our grief, our pain, none of that. It's just like they just moved on to the next.
And this is the thing, brothers, that I started to understand from that first situation with Lauren Smith. The crazy thing about it is that it took a second detective to deal with the case instead of the first. The first detective ignored it and didn't try to get to the nitty-gritty of the problem. Especially when they was forced, they have to, as police officers, report that someone has died in someone's family when that situation comes up. I mean, I think that would be the protocol for any police department, but for them to deny that and wait weeks on end, when the family naturally started to get worried, it's a smokescreen.
Families who never knew each other, now with a bond they wish they didn't share. The two women died mysteriously on the same day in the same neighborhood after romantic encounters with men, and now a raging controversy over the investigations by Bridgeport detectives.
They thought they was gonna just throw her away like she was
Garbage.
You believe they didn't do any investigation?
I know they didn't.
Absolutely not.
I know they didn't.
The families of both women say police didn't initially contact them and refused to provide any information.
Did detectives reach out to you at all?
Nobody.
They reached out to us.
We reached out to them. You're supposed to be giving me information, how they found her. What position was she in? Did you take pictures? Did you search the premises? You're supposed to be telling me.
And
Why
nothing.
Are you and nothing.
They didn't even contact us. They didn't let us know anything. It's like crazy. Got to fight and grieve and be our own prosecutor, be our own investigator. It's crazy.
After massive media scrutiny and a rally, last night, the mayor issued a video saying that two detectives had been placed on administrative leave while Internal Affairs investigates. A supervisor also abruptly retired.
The family, you usually know how that goes when they get placed on administrative leave. No, it's not some severe action that happens with these police officers. And I'm not quick to use the whole entire race narrative into this, but I mean, honestly, it suits this. You understand? And the thing about it is, it does make sense. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it does make sense why this would be a racial angle to this. You know what I'm saying? It makes perfect sense. It's messed up. It makes perfect sense why there would be a racial discrepancy off of this. That it is that ignoring a so-called black family for two so-called black women that have been murdered, especially one from an app, both of them from an app, that is. But you know.
I can only pledge my continued support to try and ease your pain by giving answers and holding those responsible accountable.
Putting someone on administrative duty with pay, that's a luxury. They getting a pass.
Last week, Bridgeport police announced a criminal narcotics investigation into the events leading up to Lauren's death. The ME ruled she died from an accidental overdose of fentanyl, other drugs, and alcohol. There has been no ruling yet in Brenda's case.
We don't know what happened. That's what we're still waiting to try to find out.
Both families and local councilwoman Maria Pereira now calling for an outside, independent investigation.
Bridgeport Police Department has by far the largest budget in the entire state of Connecticut. And what we get for it is a police department that's in shambles. I think it's chaos. It's chaos.
Many in this community believe if there is an outside investigation, it should include a civil rights probe by Justice Department officials. From Bridgeport, Sarah Wallace.
And this is the thing too. I did a little bit of research about Bridgeport in general. Bridgeport actually has a small population of so-called black people. I believe it's about 17%, around 20% if I'm not mistaken. Someone can look that up for me and correct me if I'm wrong. But you know, it doesn't justify the means, but of course it's always going to be one of those sort of things. They're going to treat so-called black people like trash, and it's going to be a misconduct and all these different things. You know, sad that this had to happen, but you know, things like that. So I want to dig deeper into this article myself, and for you guys to give your perspective and the open-endedness of what you think about this case. We got to dig deeper than it just being about a so-called black woman being on a date with a so-called white man. What pretty much struck my mind in reviewing this case and looking around for the evidence was the fact of the matter that the accuser, or the suspect in question, Matthew LaFontaine or something like that, actually had 2 Facebook profiles and 2 Facebook accounts. And after that, it got deleted. But, you know, with this, it might have been foul play. They sat up there and said that he came forward and said that it was accidental and this, that, and the third. But there's a lot of mishaps that happened to this story that seems as if it's a hole in it. Number one, why would anybody have that amount of drugs on a first date? Now, I understand more than likely it was a time to party, that more than likely Mr. Matthew and Miss Lauren Smith was going to engage in sexual acts because alcohol was present. And we have an understanding when alcohol and all that other stuff is present, is to loosen up the vibes and create some type of euphoria and then be able to go ahead and have sex afterwards. But it's a little bit weird that fentanyl and a couple of other drugs was allowed in this. Who was the one that provided the drugs? Mr. Matthew or Miss Lauren Smith? I doubt it was Miss Lauren Smith. I'm just saying. So let's continue with this article in which it starts to have a conversation about how then it was all these different things out here. I want to get to this article right here so I can have an understanding for it myself. The Bridgeport, Connecticut Police Department has opened a criminal investigation into the death of Lauren Smith Fields, the 23-year-old woman who died in mid-December. On Monday, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner ruled her death to be accidental by way of acute intoxication due to the combined effects of fentanyl, promethazine, hydroxine, and alcohol. Now, this is where I have to pause this because think about these 3 things right here. Any old person, when it comes to having a good old time, when you're keeping it friendly on a first day, would usually be alcohol and marijuana. There wouldn't usually be all these crazy ass drugs like fentanyl, promethazine, and the other drug, hydrazine. You know what I'm saying? That wouldn't be there. So let's continue. Because fentanyl was found in her system, Bridgeport PD opened the investigation, the announced Tuesday, which will be conducted by the Narcotics and Vice Division with assistance by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. The Bridgeport Police Department continues to treat the untimely death of Lauren Smith Fields as an active investigation, as we are now refocusing our attention and efforts to the factors that lead to her untimely death, the Chief of Police, Rebecca Garcia, said in a statement. Now, this is just going over exactly what happened. You know, we know the story by now. There was a used condom. So they did have sex. An unidentified pill. Could have been a Plan B pill. Who knows? You understand what I'm saying? So basically, it was like the idea she threw up by blood and this, that, and the third. All these different things happened. But moving on to the meat of this situation, connecting this also with another so-called Black woman, Brenda Rawls. You understand? That, you know, both of these things is alarming in the cases of how it's been neglected by the first department, of course. I mean, the first case, and the second case, the same thing as well, which we already viewed in the video. So now you have police officers that's so-called Black in the Bridgeport that's also taking things into their own hands and sitting up there saying something's wrong with this situation in general as well. So the Connecticut Police Department, under fire for insufficient investigation into the deaths of 2 Black women, has a history of sexist use of force and discrimination complaints, some from its own officers. Now, a flurry of social media attention that started with the death of one of those women, Lauren Smith Fields, has reignited calls for federal oversight of the department. Since 2017, at least 14 people have filed complaints or lawsuits accusing the Bridgeport Police Department of civil rights violations, including excessive force and racial discrimination. Black officers, including 2 Black captains who filed lawsuits sparking an independent probe, have accused the department of racist and hostile work environment. A former captain resigned in 2018 after texts emerged in which he called an annual Juneteenth celebration an N-word parade. Allegations of police brutality have cost the city millions of dollars in the last 2 years, according to the city council member, Maria Piera, who represents the district where the 2 women died. So also this is just talking on the fact of the matter that, you know, you had a bunch of celebrities coming out and speaking against it and all these different things and stuff like that. But I will say this, especially with the police department, people know already that the police in general are under the form of a brotherhood, you know, whether we're saying Luciferic and all these different things. And there's a lot of things that they don't want to let out there, especially when it comes to the police department. But I decided to make this video because of the noise and just because of my investigations and what is it that I saw, that it goes beyond just this whole entire meetup of a so-called Black woman with a so-called white man. I get very aggravated that brothers wanted to treat this as a way of having a very much disrespectful angle into this just because a so-called Black woman said some ridiculous, not even that she said, that she reposted something to the likes of how I'm tired of dating you coloreds, which is all just something that they say on social media. You know half damn well that so-called Black women who usually say that don't mean that shit. And, you know, this comes into the crucial mind of brothers that they're ignoring a lot of the different things and the angles that a so-called Black man could have been in the same situation if he met up with a so-called white woman and a so-called white woman was a psychopath. You understand? So my angle on that, tell me what you think in the comment section. Peace.